Okay, this was the area which I was struggling with, and the problem you can see in the CVs here, they don't look good, and I was also getting a lot of problems with the continuity. So I didn't have continuity there. I'm a long way out in terms of the angle, and I think all of this is because of the surface that it's sitting on. So we've got that surface, not that surface, that surface there, which I think needs adjusting. So if I look at the CVs on it, they're quite interesting because it goes from one shape to a completely different shape at this end. But I think when I looked at the sections going through here, so because it's such a small area, it's such a detailed area, I have to put on a lot of sections. So I've got in the X direction, I've got them at 2 mil increments so that I can see what's going on. And I can see that surface that they're sitting on. The sections going through there are quite different to the sections of the fillet itself. So I think that's what I need to do, is adjust that surface first of all. So let's take all of the CVs off that we don't want to look at. So I'm going to get rid of that lot. And actually, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to take those off. So let me go the other way. Now, I don't think, in some ways, it would be good to go back to the original surface, which I had one surface in there, but I don't think I've got that anymore. And it's a shame, because if I'd kept it, then I could probably work on this, work on that surface rather than 3 different surfaces. But the first thing I want to do, what I want to do, this is obviously curvature match this way and curvature match this way, so that's fine. But what I want to do is create, first of all, the fillet in here, make that nice, as smooth as I can, and then I'm going to modify the underlying surface to suit. So I'm going to just take these locators off for the time being, because I don't really want to look at those, because they're going to go they're going to become very large, those errors there. So first of all, I'm going to align this end. Like I say, this would be easier if I just had one surface to deal with. So as soon as I do that, and I know it's not aligned 100%, but I'm not going to worry about that in a minute. As soon as I try and align that, it lifts all of the CVs up here, so it suddenly gets this drop down. So what I want to do is put blend on and see if I can just lift these up a bit as well. So if I do that, again, I'm not going to worry too much about what these are saying at the minute in terms of the angle and curvature mismatch, and I'm not going to worry too much about the smoothness of this, but I want the general shape. What I'm trying to aim for is the general shape of these CVs all the way through here to sort of drop down just gradually across that area. So I'm going to pick up all of the, if I can get to that menu, it's put a help thing in front of it. I can't see it now. So I'm going to pick up all of those points. So it's all of those. And then I'm going to change this blend factor. If I make it 0, it lifts everything up. If I make it 1, it drops them all down. So I'm going to go somewhere in between, so that the general trend is that it's going to be slightly higher than it was, and then I can imagine that this will go back once I align this to this. So I'm going to put history on here as well, because I might want to go back and forth with this one, and then I want to do the same thing on here. So what history allows me to do is if this doesn't quite work, I can always go back and adjust the blend factors and things. So that's not too bad. Maybe on that one, I'll make the blend factor slightly bigger. I mean, it might as well just be 1 really. So it goes back to that edge. And maybe if I just don't bother blending those last 3 points, will that be okay? Yeah, that looks okay. I mean, there's a CV there which is up in the air a bit, but I'll just fix that in a minute. But that looks sort of generally what I'm looking for. So now I'm going to have to delete the history off here, because otherwise I won't be able to move these CVs around. And I just want to make this CV. I'm just going to go and right. Yeah, so I'm just going to modify that CV there. I'm just going to lift that one up slightly, or drop it down rather. I mean, not that it matters, because when I align this to the new improved surface that I'm going to put in there, then this will all change anyway. But I'll just, for the sake of making this as good as I can, I'll just tidy those up a little bit. Like I say, this isn't quite curvature matched, but it's close enough. It's 0.33. Now we can see the sections more clearly. So now I want to take these CVs off because I don't want to look at all this lot, and we'll switch those off, and then I'll put the CVs on that underlying surface there. And I'm going to, it's a pretty tricky sort of shape there because it's so three-dimensional. There is actually an angle there where we can see that that's straight and that's straight, and that's not far off being a straight line, and that could help us actually. I hadn't really sort of noticed that before, but to make that even easier to see, if I go into curves and just put a curve from that point to that end point there and just rotate the view until we sort of get a best fit. It's not exactly a straight line, but it's close, but it shows that this point is slightly out in terms of that view. And I think this might help us if we go into construction and we create a plane in that view, and I'll put it onto that edge there so that I know what it's from. And so now our grid lines are based around that view, and it means I can move that point in that plane, and then once I've got it sort of, it's not going to be a straight line, but just roughly a bit straighter. I'm just going to move that down in the y direction of that plane, and likewise with that one. It'll just help us because then we can go into another view and just move them up and down in Z, and it'll just make life a lot easier. So if you can identify a direction in which the lines are completely straight or roughly straight, then that's a good thing. These points here, because we did have curvature, and I don't know whether we still got it, but on that side, if I use slide, it shouldn't affect the curvature too much. I'll just see whether we have got that or whether we're close to it. Yeah, we have got it. So if I go and if I tried to use just point and moved it, it's likely to break the curvature, which it did. If I go and use slide and move that down this line, then hopefully that'll keep the curvature. So you can see that's happening. So as long as I'm moving it down that one, if I move it down this one, it'll break it. But if I move it down this one, there's a good chance it won't break it. And the same with that one. If I keep it on that tangent line, then it shouldn't break the curvature or the tangency, or it might do, but it'll be very close anyway. So now I can look at that from this angle, and because I've moved these points and I just moved them in the y direction of that plane, this has actually dropped that surface down quite a bit, which is obviously not what I wanted, but I can now move those just in the Z direction to get them a bit closer. So I'm going to make that just moved in the Z. My plane, you notice my plane is actually moving, and that's because I've got history on. So I don't want that history. I want to delete that history because otherwise that plane's going to keep moving around, which is not what I want. So I need to. It doesn't tell you that there's history on planes, but there is. It's quite strange. So I'm trying to get these sections closer to the other surface that's going around this corner. So I'm trying to get them close to that blue, and you can see I'm not really getting that close, to be honest. So I think there's more I need to do to these points in order to do that. I'm going to have to move that a long way. If I move that right up there, then I'm starting to get close to that section. But the problem with that is that I can see, even from this angle, that those CVs look horrible. That if I look along there, they're actually a long way out. I don't want them looking like that. That's ridiculous, because that's going to cause problems in terms of curvature. So I need to drop those back down to somewhere where they form more of a straight line in that view there. So let's bring them down there so that at least the CVs look a little bit more sensible. And those ones look not too bad. But the other possibility, so to bring those to bring this surface up, the other possibility is that I slide the points from left to right, and so let's do that. And what will also help in this area is putting some other sections on. So if I go into the, rather than X, if I go into Y, again, I need a very tight, a lot of sections there. So I'll put in 2 mil as the gap between them. So maybe what I should do is actually put in another layer so I can color this up differently. So it'll just make it easier to see. So I'll call this serve 1 or something. And I'll change that to blue and change this one, all the reference to make that gray. And then I'll put that surface onto that layer, just so it's a bit easier to see when I haven't selected it. That's probably not a great combination of colors, to be honest. Let's make that, that's a horrible color. Let's go for, that's too difficult to see. Let's make it green. That's better. So clearly you can see that the difference now is a bit easier to see. Also, don't want this surface in there. That's just interfering with the display. So we actually look quite close to those sections. But I would, no, actually the problem is because these sections are relative to this plane, which isn't actually ideal. I think I'm going to stop using that plane. I'm just going to go back to the normal planes. So if I go into construction, toggle the planes, and I'll keep that plane, but I think for now I'm not going to use it here, and I'm going to recreate those sections. So now this is the proper Y, this is the model space Y, and you can see there's a big difference because it wasn't very clear from that other view that there was much of a difference, but I know there was. So yeah, the other possibility that we can look at here is sliding these points along left to right. So that's dropping that section down. This one seems to be far too high, so let's drop that in the Z direction. We can drop that one in the Z direction as well. So I'm trying to look at the pattern of CVs as much as the sections themselves. Now I know on this end we had a huge problem trying to get this to align, and I ended up using the tangent align thing. What's it called? Tangent balance. Tangent balance to get these. This is why these CVs look very regularly spaced left to right. Again, that would help if I could slide these points along. Maybe I can to some extent. So I'll put the analysis on there just to have a look and see if I move these points along left to right. It gets closer to the section. It's actually not breaking the curvature by doing that. Then of course I need to bring these along as well. I could have put PMOD on, but probably just as quick to do it, just do individual points. It's these ones here. As soon as I start moving those, I think I'm going to break the curvature. Maybe not. Oh, no. Oh, I've got to be careful here. What am I actually looking at? I think this and that. Oh, let me pick that surface and that surface. I might be comparing the wrong surfaces actually with that analysis. No, I'm not. No, I'm just going to delete that locator just in case I was picking up the wrong edges, because I might have been picking the other edges. There's multiple edges going on there. So let me go into there again. No, it's fine. Okay, so maybe we can all these points. So I am going to use PMOD on here and slide. So this is, I find this sometimes it's tricky to pick these correctly, but maybe I'll move those points, maybe just those 2 points actually, and then use the slider. So it's just picking the correct arrows on this and see how far I can go left before the curvature breaks. That's so strange, because last time I seem to remember I broke that curvature so easily, and this time it doesn't seem to be bothered. So, which is good news, because that'll drop that surface down quite a bit. So let's bring things back in. This surface, which is getting in the way, I'm just going to make that into a template so that we don't have to look at it. So that's our surface. So we're still high on there. Let's see if we can take that even further then. So Pmod, slide that one, and it's just those two. I'm going to slide that a bit further. I'm going to take that one, slide that. Oh, we get rid of that curve. That's getting in the way as well. So I'm going to do a Pmod on that, 2 points, just slide that way. Curvature still holding, which I wasn't expecting for that to happen, to be honest. Still holding, so that's good. Okay, so that's helped bring that down, and we're pretty close here as well. This one, I need to lift the surface there, and I've got a bit of a hiccup in those points there, so I'm going to use slide there on the individual point, and then this one as well, slide that one that way, so the pattern of CVs looks okay, and then I'm going to move those up and down as well. So if I'd have to move it that far to get that section exactly on, but I don't want to move it above there because then we get a zigzag in the CVs, which I don't want. So if I get to that point, then I know I really have to stop, and then it's a question of moving it left to right using slide to get it higher. I can also move these points. That's another possibility. And so I'm looking at the pattern going across there as well. Because it's three-dimensional, you look at it from one angle, it looks fine, and then you look at it from another angle, you think, oh, that looks horrible. And so maybe if I go back to that plane, which I seem to have lost, I think, but it doesn't matter. It's probably just disappeared. Maybe it's disappeared into another layer, although I don't understand why. It's actually disappeared because it's, oh, maybe it's that one. It is that one, yeah. So it's worth me putting that into the planes layer there. So at least I know where it is. Or yeah, so if I open that planes layer up and have a look at the objects in there, it's the only one visible at the minute. It'll just help me tidy it up a bit. So I will go and pick that plane again, and then we can look at that from the top view and have a look at those CVs. So you can see that in terms of that plane, they've gone up and down. Once more, if I go into sliding these points, then I can keep the shape that I've got more or less. I mean, it's going to change it a bit, but it just means I can, in this view, if I use the tangent line there, so I always pick the arrow between that and the end point is probably more likely to keep the shape a bit more. And likewise with that one going that way, and these have gone a bit weird. It doesn't really matter which line I pick there, it's or which arrow I pick, it's going to be, because it's only a small change anyway. These ones I'd pick the upper arrow there. This looks very odd. That's an odd shape, so let's make that a bit more regular going that way. I mean, this is almost straight here, so maybe this should be straight, and I could, to some extent, I can use maybe planarized hull on ones which look pretty straight. That one looks pretty straight. If I make that straight, that's probably gone too far, so I will need to put some curve in there. There's a curved shape that way and a straight line that way, so this has got to be somewhere in between. Again, sliding it left to right shouldn't affect it too much. It will do, it will change the shape, but it'll be fairly small. So now if I look at it from these angles, and I'm going to then move those points up and down in this axis, so I'm going to go into here and move these up and down. I'm sort of, the sections, I think they've become, they seem to be different. The sections, they don't seem to tie up at all, and I think it just needed me to turn that off and turn it back on again, and suddenly the sections are related to that plane. I think I had some of the surfaces in one plane and some of them in the other plane, and that's just the way sections does it. It's just something to watch out for. So this point here, I can see that that needs to go up a little bit. So I'm looking to make sure it doesn't really go above the straight line joining that point to that point. So that's about as far as it can go. This one going across that way sort of goes up and then comes down again. So I need to get that down a bit. So I'm moving only in the Z of that plane, and that looks better. This one does look a bit weird when you look at it in 3D, to be honest. So maybe that plane's not absolutely ideal, but let's go and so in 3D, if I move that way, so then now that looks like a straight line. This one is slightly curved that way, as is that one, and that's okay. But I think that one in that view just looks like it needs to go up a little bit in the Z direction. And we're very, very close to these sections now. So let me go back and the other way we can look at this is what we've done before, where we just isolate that, and then we can go into diagnostics, box mod with where is it? Box mod, take subdivision only off. So if you've got that on, it won't work. Switch that off, and you get this display, which is sometimes easier to see the quality of that set of CVs. So it looks pretty good. It looks pretty good. And right, let's bring everything back in. I'm now going to save this because we've done quite a bit of work here, and I haven't saved it at all yet. So that's so our sections seem to be pretty much on top of each other on that underlying surface in this one, which is good news. One thing about this corner, and I don't know whether we'll need to do this, and maybe I should have done it before, but is we've got these edges flowing this way, these edges flowing this way, and that's good because that'll help us align things. But this edge comes off at a slight angle, and maybe what I should have done is just trim converted that across so that we end up with that. In fact, I'm going to do that now. So I've just saved it. So I really want this edge to flow into there, because then this is much more likely to get we're much more likely to get alignment in all directions then. And so I'm going to do that. So let's go into which plane we're in. We're in that local plane at the minute. So let's go into our normal plane. So we toggle CP back to the world space, and I'm going to put in a curve from this point which is tanned into this edge. So if we bring this surface in here, put some CVs on that so we can see what's going on. So the tangent condition is defined by that point and that point. So I can do this by putting in a curve from that corner across to somewhere up here, it doesn't matter where, and then I will not just make it tangent, but I'm going to make that curvature aligned into there. Normally I just do tangent. I think I'm going to do curvature, see what it does. I don't know whether it'll make it much better, but it should look better anyway. So if I align that into that edge, now it says align failed with error 11, not enough CV rows, and we should recognize that error message when that happens. It's to do with blending. It's trying to pick up all of these extra points. We haven't got any extra points, so I need to take blending off, and then it'll work. We can adjust the shape of that by pulling and pushing these CVs as well. So I'm going to make it as always. We want, when I trim convert this surface, I want the corners to be ideally 90 degrees, but close to 90 degrees will be good. But if I pull that right up there, then we've got more like 45 degrees, which isn't so good. So it's better to keep it somewhere like that. Maybe it shouldn't be too critical anyway. And then with these surfaces, I want to extend this right hand surface this way and trim convert, and extend this one that way. First of all, I'm going to just check that I haven't got any history on anything, because that's likely to cause problems. So I'm going to delete all the construction history in that area, and then we'll do a Actually, I've got, yeah, I want to delete the construction history off that curve. I can see the curve's got construction history as well. So let's do that. So I'm going to, the reason I'm going to extend this right hand one that way is because the curve comes right to the corner, it's probably going to fail if I try and trim convert it to that corner. It'll be too close to that corner. If you make it a bit bigger, it's much more likely to succeed. So let's go into trim convert here, project in the Z direction, that surface, that one there. Now if I try and do that, it's going to fail. The reason being that I've got curves on the surface there, so it just won't do it. It says trim convert failed. And so what I've got to do there before I can actually do a trim convert is isolate that, pick all the curves on the surface, so drag a window around everything. It highlights the sections, but it doesn't actually delete them. I mean, they're not curves on surface, but for some reason it highlights them. That's really not, that really shouldn't be happening, but that's what it does. So now we can trim convert that. You can see it says maximum 0.003. That's the difference between that and the original. So not very significant. It will have messed up the CVs a little bit, but we can fix those anyway. And then this one, if I extend that way, fortunately it behaves itself. If you find that you've got, like, this is quite a high degree, if you find extend is not behaving itself, that this starts to curve up and do weird things, then the answer is to just drop the degree down. So we could drop the degree down in the U direction, and if you dropped it down to 2, then it's an approximation of what was there originally. If you really have problems, then drop it down to 1 and extend it, and then you just have to increase the degree later. But I'll drop it down to 2. It wasn't actually giving me problems, but that's the solution. I shall cancel that because it was actually fine, but it's a way to be able to extend the surface when it doesn't want to behave itself. So let's trim convert that back to that curve as well. And then everything's ending up on the wrong layer, of course, because I'm in planes, which I don't want to be. So I want this in surface, I think, or bonnet detail, one of the two, doesn't really matter. The curve I can get rid of, don't need that. And then we just need to align things. So let's just take our sections off because it's difficult to see. And there will be some tidying up of these CVs here by the looks of things. So let's bring back this main surface. So I need to go and pick that template and then untemplate it. So we've actually got it as a physical surface, and we'll just go around and check what our continuity conditions are. That one hopefully will be the same. This one, okay, that's good, even though I'd extended it. Oh wow, that's actually spot on. Now that curve on surface, I'm not sure whether there's 2 curves on surface there or just 1. Actually, there's no curves on surface because it's a trimmed surface. So let me just have a look at that. If I untrim that, I don't know whether I've got 1 or 2. It's actually 1 big curve on surface. So if I put edit points on, then you can see it's a big curve on surface. So that's fine because we can just use partial when we align it. If it was it split up, then the trouble is the curve on surface would have stopped there, and then the next one would start there, and then when we try and align it, it wouldn't work. But we can do this if we needed to align. But as it happens, we've got those. It was 1 big surface, so that's big edge, so that's fine. I noticed my locators have disappeared. So if I go into visible, and I tried this the other day, and it worked, and now I'm not just sure. Okay, they can all come back. So it is in that, it's in display visible. I was struggling to get this to work the other day when I was trying to demo it to yourselves, but it seems to be working now. Okay, which is good. Okay, so that's where the locators went. This one, because we've changed this, it obviously needs aligning this way. So let's go into Object, Edit, Align, and we'll go and align it that way. And it's not aligned 100%, it's 0.15, but we won't worry about that for the time being. Well, no, actually, we probably do need to worry about that, but we'll worry about that a bit later on because we might have to change these CVs. Now, it's almost inevitable that error is just the fact that if I put tangent balance on, it fixes it. But the trouble is it pulls all the CVs over there, which is not what I want. What we might be able to do, so did I have history on? I did. So I'm going to take history off and just make sure. I don't think I've got history on there. No, I've got history on there. So I deleted that now because I want to see if I align it the other way, this way, well, I've got to be careful it doesn't break the curvature on the side there. But if I go tangent balance, it's actually kept the curvature there, but it's moved it far too far. It's just, that's not right. It's pushed all of those CVs together. But if I take that back, so that's where we are, and we haven't got curvature alignment there. But what we found before is if I move that slightly that way towards where tangent balance would be correct, it's starting to get that curvature right down. So let me just undo that. And the other thing we can do is we can link the third row to the second row. So that would make sense because it would, well, maybe it would make sense, maybe it wouldn't. It's actually pushing it too far, but I can just move that until the curvature is okay. That didn't actually help that auto scale. Oh, that's the wrong one. So if I pull this one and just try and get that halfway between. So although the spacing's not brilliant there, it's sort of a bit bigger than you really want. It has actually fixed the curvature. If you were really bothered about that spacing, we could slide and use PMOD, but we might end up having a problem on that end as well. But it does fix the problem in terms of the curvature. It's one of those strange things. The trouble is when I did it on this side, it moved that a long way, whereas on this side it's hardly noticeable. So which is why I did it that way. This edge we want to align as well. So this is going to be a partial edge, and we're going to do that. And we will want position influence of 0 on so that it doesn't move the CVs. And it's broken that angle, which is probably not too surprising. Now we might be able to well, let's see what happens if I try and align that big one to the other one now. So it's breaking it there, but the curvature is 0.11, so very close. The gap's 0.009, angle's very low. It's all very low. So if I say G1 instead, it's breaking in position. If I take that edge off and just say skew, so it's relaxing it a bit. We've only got tangency, but let's see if we've got curvature. No. Okay, so we need to put curvature on. So we are breaking it there. And we've hit the limit of the degree. We've got degree 7 there. We haven't quite achieved curvature there. Let's have a look at why is that not? Oh, it's because edge align. Yes, with that edge align on, I don't notice I haven't got access to tangent balance with that edge align on. So I have to put edge align on, and then the curvature is fine there. It's just on this edge here. Now that's very, very close. So we might be able to just get away with, you know, position it's 0.009 something. So let's see if we can just match that in position. I need to get rid of that curve because it's just annoying. So we can get position, it breaks the angle there. Let's see if we've got curvature. No, we haven't. What about then? So if I put tangency on it, it fixes it, but then it breaks the curvature going that way. So let me just undo that. Get rid of that curve. So let me just try that again. So I'm going to go align. I will do G2 partial into there, which has broken this. But I'm just wondering, we haven't reached the limit of what the degree could be here. So maybe that's the thing to do. I'll take partial off. And we'll put position influence of 1 on so that the CVs join up exactly. And let's see. So it says 0.16. So that's basically, if I put tangent balance on, it's going to want us to push that point even further to the left to get us the curvature. Breaks the position at the top, unfortunately. I'm going to take that back a bit. I don't like that. If we increase the degree, I wonder what happens. It'll mean that this is less noticeable if I try and move that around. Strangely enough, when I'm moving it that way, that worked. Okay, good. So we've just got a little gap, tiny gap, 0.0013. Maybe we can get away with this one. So this is going to be a partial edge. I want position influence of 0, 1, so it doesn't move the CVs around too much. And it breaks that, doesn't it? Revert that. That is so small that I'm thinking I'm just going to see what happens if I try and move that. I'm going to put lots of mouse sensitivity on because it's so small. I should be able to just breathe on it and it'll get the position down to 0.001 something. And that's actually fixed the curvature. So if it's that close, sometimes the manual method is the quickest route. Okay, so our CVs have got a bit messed up in the terms of that pattern. I'm going to save that because we've done a lot of little detail work in there, which was tricky. So don't want to lose that. And we've managed to get curvature alignment on the underlying surface at least. I think this one here, I should check that because having done a trim convert there, it's an approximation of the original surface and it might have changed this end, and it has. So we want to get that end correct. So I'll make these, I'll just make those templates for a moment, and then we'll see if this end will align. I hope so. So position influence needs to be 1 to match that up. That is a shame because I moved these points before and that got rid of that. It kept that curvature, which was a big surprise to me. And now we've broken it. Sadly, it is on just that corner point. This is the problem I had last time. I've got partial on, which I don't want. In fact, if I put tangent balance on, it moves them so far away, which is a shame. I mean, a solution is to what I could do is go back to an old model where that was fine, the last model, and then sort of split this surface and join it up. But I'd rather keep this as one surface, to be honest. So I'm going to see if I can. What I did last time with this was to use slide with PMod, and I managed to move just those points. I know the other points are slightly different now. Now, have I got, this is the problem I sometimes find, is it doesn't always want to let you pick those points. The other thing is I've got mass sensitivity on of 5,000, which is going to slow me down a lot. So I don't know whether it might be that I've just got to go back to tangent balance and align that, and then I'm going to have to move those CVs until it stops, until we, so we keep the curvature. So let me just align that again. I will put tangent balance on, and then I'm going to have to come out of that, and then because the problem with that spacing, apart from the fact that it doesn't look right, is very closely spaced here, and then a big gap here, is the sections there weren't correct. So let me see if we can get away with doing PMod here. So I'm going to move those 2 points. I'm going to see if we can do this as well. So if I go in that direction, and then I've got to decide which direction's U and which is V, which is really difficult to see. Yeah, I think I'm going to have to pick that actually and find out. So that's the V direction, that's the U direction. So let's try that again. So if I go into there, so I want to change that one and that one. I also want to change the next set there, but this is the V direction. So in the V direction, I want to change this value to 0. So in other words, the idea is it's going to move those points rather than do a blended change. So sort of moving those points by the same amount as the one I'm working on, and I'm watching the curvature on there or more or less the same amount. I can experiment with the values there. See, if I make that go to 1, it actually moves it closer. I think I can make it go the other way. So if I use Alt, I can actually go that way, or I can type in a value so that the spacing of the CVs is better. I could also just see if I can pick up that point. Probably too late now. Yeah, so I'll move those points as well, but that's more like I want the spacing to be. And so let's come out of there. And then I'll see if I can move these points as well. So I'll take PMOD off. I'm just going to move individual points. So I just want an individual CV. See if we can maintain that curvature on the right hand side and just get these CVs looking a bit better. So that looks okay. This row, these CVs here, look, they're a bit all over the place. I just want to make those a bit straighter there. That one is a bit out that way, a bit out that way. So there's so much you can do with the CVs. I mean, I sort of know that we were quite close in terms of sections originally. Hopefully that won't have affected things too much. This point here is too low. We can see that. I'm just moving that in the Z direction. Just check I've got the right plane on. Yes. So I can't go above a straight line between those points really. And the same with that one. So I'm just moving in the Z direction, and hopefully they'll. So I do need to bring my sections back now. I've sort of tidied those up a little bit. And they're not too bad. So our surface there is still a bit high here, and whether I can push these points any further this way, I'm not sure, because I can't move those up and down because it breaks the curvature. This point I could move up and down. That's another option. So let me try that. So we want to go lower there, but there's a limit to what it'll let me do. It'll only really affect this area. It's not going to affect this area. So I'll see how far I can go with that without the CVs looking wrong. So this point needs to be following a sort of imaginary straight line between these points really. You shouldn't go below. That one could actually go a bit lower. Looking at those points, that could also go a bit lower in terms of the CV pattern there. So that's looking not too bad. And then we can see if we can push these points any further left to right. So I'm just going to move individual points and then try and tidy up the CV pattern left to right as well. I mean, one option, if this curvature does break, is that we could increase the degree going down this way. That would be another possibility. It's a sort of, it's not ideal. If we can avoid it, it would be better. So I'm looking at that section there, trying to get closer to that section. Most of this is going to be cut away, but actually the closer so it seems a bit daft that we're spending so much time trying to get this section here when actually the only bit of the surface that we're going to use is this triangle. But the closer we get these surfaces together, the better. It's just going to all work much better. That surface there has come back again. Going to get rid of that. We don't want to go. So the most important thing is the sections coming through here, because that's where we're going to align to. Let me just save that once more. So we've looked at sections. Those look quite good, the X and the Y sections. The other section that we could look at is Z. So if I go into Z, and I have to put in a very small step here. I could make it even 0.25. We just need to be careful. Like if we got the whole model in, you can see how many sections we've got here. I've got all objects on. We could be more selective. We could just select things and then apply. Because if you've got the whole model in at 0.25 mil steps, it's going to be taking a long time to cut those sections. Obviously you want to try and avoid that. That's actually looking quite good, but the Z sections are much more sensitive. You can see that they start to break down a bit because they're so it's like it's not that that's the section, it's just that that's what it's calculating. It's calculating it at certain points. You can see it sort of looks very faceted, and it's because it's starting to reach the limits of what the system can actually measure, really. But it's even more sensitive. I can see that here we're slightly high on that section, so we could maybe use that to move that point down a bit, or up. It's actually up, isn't it? Slightly low on the section, but it's very, very sensitive to the shape. You can see the facets on there. I'm trying to reach those little peaks, because the bits in between, well, it's all a bit suspect. It's because I'm pushing the boundaries of the system, really. It's about the limit of what it can actually measure, and the accuracy of it. So let's take those off, clear those. The thing that's even more sensitive is if I go into diagnostics and I put highlights on. So you can see the highlights look pretty good, even though these aren't aligned at the minute. We should be able to put transparency on, but I was trying this earlier and it wasn't working at all. But if we put transparency on, you can see the lines there. They're changing. The one surface is going one way and the other one's going the other way. Very difficult to read. It's easier if we do create curves and put show curves only. And now we can see here it's really, really good. Down here is not so good, but these highlights are absolutely super sensitive to what's going on. So if I make this mass sensitivity a bit higher again, now when we move these points up and down, so you need to do this, you've got to have sort of done the sections first. So we may not be able to get exactly onto those highlights. That would be probably asking too much. You can see how it's moving the highlights one way there, but at the same time that one wants to go higher, so I pushed it up there, but you can see there's a zigzag in the CV, so I don't want to do that. So the alternative, as before, is to slide that point along left to right in that area. So it's helping that area, but this area is not so good, because this is likely to, if I go and make that, just save that again, just in case this all goes horribly wrong, which is, sometimes you try these things and because I've got to pull multiple points around, I will put a bit of PMOD on there. I'm going to set that back to 1 so that I don't mess up in future. And then we'll move that point there. So it's these arrows I find quite difficult to pick sometimes. So if I push that one that way, it sort of sorts it out here, but then it's messed up here. So I'm going to do the opposite here. I'm going to move that one there. The trouble is, oh, hang on a minute, going down the wrong way. So it's that arrow I want. Yeah, that arrow. I think I tried to pick it and thought I picked it and I hadn't. So I need to move that way. I'm not really looking at the CV patterns at the minute. So this one needs to go along this way. Yes, this is what I'm struggling with, is just trying to pick that arrow. And it doesn't matter how much you zoom in, that doesn't get any bigger. Ah, there we go, eventually. Oh, damn it. I just picked the wrong surface. Let's just get rid of that. Get rid of those CVs. So I need to pick up on those two and then try and move it along that tangent there. I don't know what, I've never tried this, but I don't know whether I've got a pick box size of 20. So it's not that's not the problem. It just seems to, sometimes it just does not want to pick. The other possibility is maybe if I take PMOD off, and it will do that, and then maybe if I go back, no, it loses the picking then. I haven't found a way of absolutely foolproof picking these. I think that what I'm going to do is give up on that and just do the single point, because that will work. But PMOD is obviously nice to do, because I really want to move the other points as well to make them sort of roughly the right pattern. But I'm going to just do that there. Then push that one that way. Push that one that way. So I'm pushing one way and then the other one the other way. And then I will have to make sure at some point, so that's sort of a bit closer maybe. I'm not sure it is, but this is why I saved it, because this is just notoriously difficult to do and can go horribly wrong. You just then you suddenly find, because you can't really concentrate on everything at the same time, so you just have to concentrate on the highlights and then concentrate on the CVs. So I'm just trying to get the CVs. The CVs often in these sort of areas, they start to do something very weird on the edges, but as long as the other CVs are in a sensible pattern of some sort around those, then it's fine. So I'm looking really at the pattern of the CVs, not so much at the highlights. You can see the highlights are actually getting pretty close. Like I say, this edge we're not actually going to use directly, but the closer everything is to the other surface, the better. And maybe we've got curvature on there. I'm just seeing, wonder if pushing that, yeah, as soon as I push that to the right, it breaks the curvature. So we can't really do much to no, we can't do. It's super sensitive, that one. So let's move that one across that way just to get the CV patterns looking a bit better. And it's worth isolating that. We can take those highlights off completely. So just say delete curves and take the shade, go back to the wireframe mode, go back to box mode and have a look at that. So it looks very, very weird in a sense, but it actually there's a logic to it in the sense that this edge does this strange thing, and the spacing of the CVs isn't ideal, but it's to get with the alignment working on both ends, so that's what we have to work with. But that gives you some idea. As you rotate the model, you can see angles at which, you can say, well, those look as though they should be pretty straight in that view, so why don't we just slide that along? I know I'm fussing now, but this is the sort of thing that you have to do in 3D. Have a look at those things in 3D, because in 2D everything can look really fine even in two views, but it's only when you look at it in 3D it looks very odd. I think that's good enough. So let's bring everything back in. So let's we'll take these highlights off now. So I've got to go back into you have to go back into the function, and then I'm going to have to delete the curves if there are any curves, and then we come out of that. I just go by hardware shade, so I'm using the S key. So in other words, that's the hotkey for hardware shade that I've got. So just shade it up and then unshade it, and you get back to the wireframe mode. Right, so the moments of truth now. Let's put these. I thought I templated those, but obviously I haven't. So I'm going to get rid of the CVs on here and here now, so we don't have to look at those. I think I've got a curve in there that's a bit confusing. What's going on there? That's plane. I'm going to switch off all the planes so we don't have to look at those. And then we need to start going around, getting things aligned. There's a plane there. I don't know what that's for. Just going to assign it to that layer. Doesn't really matter. If I don't know what it is, I can just put it into a layer and sort it out later, or delete it. So we want to get this to align. So I'm not going to worry about the bottom edge at the minute. That should be fairly easy to sort out, I would hope. Going to save it again. And I'm going to start off by trying to align that left to right. So we go left to right there. That one is to there. And actually, that's as good as it ever got. So we'll leave that as it is. This surface here, I know there's no cursor surface because we trim converted it, so we had to get rid of those. get rid of this menu. So I'm going to align G2 project in the Z that onto here, and this is where it hopefully will work, and probably won't, but so we've got that going on at the minute. So it says it's quite a big angle. It's 0.5 of a degree. It's changed the angle here by 0.13. That's so much better than it was before, because before it was going to 5 degrees. There's still a bit of a weird thing going on here with the CVs, but it's not as bad as it was before, because it came along and then just dropped down suddenly. It was horrendous. So that's better. And then we're going to go and align that there. And by some miracle, that's given us curvature alignment on there, which is really good, but odd that it did that, I think. That aligns there, so that's good. I will align it on this end now, so I'm going to do edge partial that surface into there, and it's broken the continuity there. We've got edge on, which, although there isn't an edge that it's aligning to, it's actually saying that that's aligning to the iso palms of this surface, which is a good thing. If I put skew on, it'll keep the angle where it was, and that's very bad. I mean, why it's affecting that end, I've no idea. That doesn't make any sense, but I'm going to leave edge on. Edge is the ideal, that if these flow into iso palms, like this edge flows into an edge, then that's a good thing. And it's how I constructed that in the first place that has resulted in that being the case. So I'm now going to try and align that. I notice I've got history off, because you need history off when you're doing multiple lines like this. So that's broken the curvature there, no surprise. So if I take it back to G1 and see if we can get G2 there, not quite, it's 0.17. So we could, because it's only 1 point, we could just try quickly. I'm just going to use normal here and put lots of mouse sensitivity on, say 500, on that third point. So it's very close to where that problem is. Just see if we move it, whether we can get that down. Oh, I did see it go to, oh, it went green at 1 point. So what we need to do is I'll undo that, put more mouse sensitivity on, so I'm making it 5,000 instead. I can see the numbers occasionally come down to 0.1 something, and it did go green at 1 point. So it's, yes, let me make that even bigger, that number. Oh, it's strange, because it comes down and then goes back up again, whereas it definitely went green at 1 point. I need to move it more. It's weird. Well, I've got it to 0.18. I'm going to try sliding it, because this is the other possibility, that if I slide it left up and down there, bear in mind that if I move it up that way, that it shouldn't affect the curvature that way. That can also have an impact, and it's actually, yeah, that's actually moving down now. And then it goes back up again. So let's get it as low as we can, 0.15. I'm going to try moving that point. So I'm moving along the end tangent. Hopefully it won't affect the curvature on the top. And if that doesn't work, then we can do the same trick on this side. See if we can get that down. That seems to be coming down a bit faster now. It's looking hopeful. The top edge is still green, I think. Oh, it gets to 0.12 and then goes back up again. So close. Frustratingly close, that is. What if I just move that one? I mean, that's going to break the tangency, I would have thought, but it might do the trick. You never know sometimes. It's just so close. It's not quite green though. It's annoying. Let me just try aligning the right hand one to the left hand one. See if we can do it that way. Hooray! So I didn't need to do it manually. It's just it was tantalizingly close, and sometimes it will just go in. So now the problem here is we've got, what's the curvature there? That's 0.95. So that's it may be because that's a complex corner that we will just accept that that's not perfect. We just need to get this angle down and these gaps removed. So let me just try the bottom edge first. Let's get this one aligned. So this is going to be position influence of 1. It's partial, and we've got edge and edge, which is the right thing to have. And then we want to try and align that. I'm going to try and align that into the right-hand surface there. So that breaks the condition down there. Let's try G1 and then put G2 on, see whether we've got it. Yes, we have. Great. And then this one, we've broken the angle. So I'm just going to align it in terms of the angle. Again, let's have a look at the curvature. I don't hold out much hope that that's correct. So that all of the problem is around this corner, which is inevitable because everything's coming together there. And so I think what I'm going to do is save that again. So the solution here is, because these are big, quite big in terms of the errors that we're getting there. If we were to look at the highlights, I bet they're pretty good though. So the highlights look absolutely fine there. I haven't trimmed this surface back, so we're getting this weirdness going on here because that's one's overlapping the other. If we look at it from the rear though, we can see what it will look like when it's trimmed. So that looks pretty much perfect to me. But we still get, these errors. The trouble is with these errors that in some certainly bigger companies, they will look at those and say, oh, that's not acceptable. Whereas in fact, it's the highlights that matter. So in terms of, if you were to machine that or 3D print it or something, you'd find that would be absolutely perfect. I'd be absolutely fine with sending that off to be machined. But if we really want to get those down, the way I think that we're going to have to do that is to detach this a little bit more. So I'm going to get rid of the locators on all of those edges first, because as we found before, it picks up on the wrong edges if you leave those in. It's fairly obvious when you see them, but so I'm going to detach that. Most of the problem is in this corner, so I'd make this surface smaller than that one. That's going to be less of an issue. This is where the issue is, so we can do that. We've got curves on surface there. I'd be inclined to delete those curves on surface and just create some fresh ones, and then we can go into evaluate. Some of these edges will still be G2 continuous where we've aligned them before. That one will be, because it's where the detach is. This one we haven't got yet. That one's obviously not. So let's go into Object Edit and Align, G2 right to left. Now that's very, it's not odd. It's just, I know why it is. It's because of tangent balance again. That as soon as we put tangent balance on, it sorts itself out in terms of the alignment that way. It's moved the CVs, but because it's quite a small surface, it doesn't really affect that edge. Where it has messed up is in the middle. It's sort of squishing them together a bit there. We could just put blend on and then just pick up some of these other CVs up to the fourth one, so that we don't affect the CVs on that side. So the spacing isn't perfect, but we could, again, we might be able to move those individually. We might find that allows us to keep the curvature going on. This one obviously is broken a bit, so let's go G1 on that edge. It's going to be a partial edge into there to see if we can fix that. Broken the tangency there, so let's just try G0 and see if G2 is still there. Not quite, angle's too big. So we go to G1, the angle's not quite right there. What happens if we put skew on? It doesn't actually improve it, but sometimes that you might get away with doing that. So I think it's now into, we're going to have to align that in G1 right to left. So that's kept the curvature there. Let's put curvature on there and see whether it's still there. No, it's not, which is annoying. I'm going to have to go to G2. I always kept the curvature at that time. So blending. Doesn't help much. It just makes it less squashed in the middle. But actually, when I put blending on, oh, did that? Yeah, as soon as I put tangent balance on, it's throwing this end out. So let's have a look at that. So it's moving that. The trouble is, it's moving those CVs too much on that end, and you don't have any choice about which end it's going to move. As far as I know, I mean, it's possible that if we change the U V directions around, it might actually allow us to do that, I think. But I've never tried that, but it might be something I should have a go at. Because what I want to do is really I want to keep those points where they are and let these ones move. That would be a better thing to do. So what I can do is if I link G2 to G1, I've only got one row to think about, but maybe if I pull that back, I can get those left-hand CVs back to where they were, roughly. So that's very close. Maximum Angus comes out. Right, fantastic. So that's pretty much where they were. So that's done the job there. CVs a bit squished in the middle. If we wanted to, of course, we can go and modify those. Just make them a little bit more equally spaced. I think it's only really that row there, that hole there that I need to worry about. So it just makes the spacing a bit more regular, or a bit more progressive at least. So I still need to get this aligned here. This is always going to be the issue, and it may be that I'll just give up with that one in terms of getting the absolute curvature fixed. So we've got Z on, we've got project on. So it's still saying maximum curvature is 1, which is no good. But it's no good in terms of the numbers. I'm going to go back to G1. Still got curvature there. So I knew this was going to be the problem area. The other possibilities we detach it over here. Let me make that G0, and it's highly unlikely this would be curvature aligned. G1, it's got to be G2 to get it to align. So I think the best we can do is get tangency on that edge and tangency on that edge, unless I split this surface up as well. Maybe I should do that. But even that by itself, G2, is just not achieving it. So I think I'm just going to resort to making that G2 on that edge, and this one. So I'm sort of cheating, but in a way, but I'm not, because like I say, the important thing is the highlights, and that corner is just, it depends on how much time you've got to spend, but usually time pressures mean that you've got to eventually give up on a corner like that. It's one that you could come back to maybe. No, this was doing this earlier where it won't actually let me put the diagnostics on. That's weird. So that looks okay. Pardon me, this needs to be trimmed out. So even though it's in theory not matching in curvature, it's very, very close. This one I still haven't actually done, so I need to do that. G2 project. So if anything's going to give you a problem, it's always these corners where they come together like that. So that's broken the tangency there. I don't think if I did G1 and then look at the curvature, that would be aligned. No, didn't think it would be, because I've never actually even roughly aligned that. So we'll have to then look at that one. But this one, if I just take that back to G1, it's still curvature aligned there. Broken the curvature there slightly, but it's very small. It might, because that's 0.11. That's another one where I'd just go in there and just see if I could manually move that point. I'll move it normal with lots and lots of mouse sensitivity on, so 50,000, and just see if I can bring that down below 0.1. Because it can be just the quickest way. I know that in theory affects the curvature that way, but we got away with it. And if it got to the point where that breaks, then I'd move on to the next point and just see if I can fix it that way. Much quicker than doing a line. sometimes. But obviously, if you spent 5 minutes doing it, then you might decide that it's not the way to do it, but that's fine. So I'm going to trim that back. Let's see if the highlights work. Why are the highlights not working? Shade new objects. That shouldn't not the issue. I've not changed anything in here, so I don't actually understand why that one doesn't work. That one works. That one works. That one doesn't work. That makes no sense. And it's annoying because that's the one that I want. Unless it's because I've got a template in there that's confusing it. I don't think that would be the case. So we should be able to now trim. We probably can't trim this surface back because I don't think it's actually. Yeah, if I try and trim that, the curved surface doesn't go all the way. But like I say, often in an area like that, if you look at it from behind, you can see it as though it is trimmed. What I could do there is, because it's got a curve on surface there, I could extend that curve on surface. So I can take that curve on surface, go across there, and then at least we can trim out this end bit. So if I try and trim that, it'll do that. So now from the rear, if I delete all my locators and take the displays off, I can then go and put, thought I'd try that highlighting tool. I don't know why that highlighting tool is not working. Maybe I need to restart Alias, but that looks really nice, I think. I mean, there's a slight hiccup going through there, which is slightly annoying, but we're talking microscopic amounts here. When you shade it up like that, you can't see that. I think, or is it because it's? It might be because it's feeding. It's probably because it's feeding into this shape, so it has to do something like that in order to feed into that shape. Probably. Have a look at the CVs on that. The CVs look absolutely fine that way. I don't see really what could possibly be causing that highlight, to be honest. It just must be the angle of the highlight, because these are completely defined by curvature that way and curvature that way, and then the pattern of CVs in that direction, that we've got those pretty much straight. I mean, they probably wobble up and down a bit if you looked at it under a microscope, but really I can't see anything wrong with that. So I think it's a little bit odd, because that highlight seems to be on that area, not on this area, and yet there's nothing on that surface that I can see that's causing that. The only thing is we've got these fast tessellation on. Maybe that would improve if I made it accurate. It takes a heck of a lot longer to shade up. That didn't make any difference at all. So this is where this is really good, but I can't actually look at it. Is it because I've got transparency on there? Got transparency on it. Doesn't seem to like transparency. That's better. Yeah, so when we look at that highlight, that looks absolutely fine actually going through there. So this gives you a great idea, if you take all the edges off, of whether things are flowing. So where our curvature problem is down there, apparently, according to the diagnostics. But if I take the edges off, well, you can see a slight bend, maybe slight discontinuity, but it's microscopic. You really wouldn't see that if you machined it. I mean, it could be, yeah, it's just such a small area that I wouldn't worry about it. Main thing is, as long as you've got position and tangency, then it will machine. It will go into other CAD systems without any problem. And I haven't actually measured that geometry, but it's going to be very, very small. So let's take this grid off. I think what we could do is just, because now I've got to that point, let me just take all of these CVs off. I should try and tidy up a little bit here. So top is the glass house area. So I don't know why I called it top. I should call it glass house. That'll be more sensible. I'm not going to go through all the curves at the minute, but I'll look at those at some point. I'm going to delete all the locators. I think there's some curves knocking around there which we don't need. And originals was lots of stuff that was like for construction. Don't think any of that is needed anymore. And wheel arch front, I'll leave construction. I'm just really looking for the surface stuff. So body is that lot. So we've got all those locators have come back now because I've done display visible locators, so it's made them all visible now. So let's get rid of all of those because that's really difficult to see. We've got a point there. So with points, I've got that the last time I went into this was construction objects, so I can just drag a window around there. It'll get rid of all the points. Also gets rid of the planes as well, if you wanted to. So there's still more things to finish off here. It's just that I'd like to just tidy up a bit. So body side is there. So we don't want to look at the glass house in a minute. Surface bonnet, I don't think that's got nothing in it. You can see there's no arrow there, so there's nothing in that one. Whip 01, let's have a look at that. So I think that's just some temporary surfaces that we used along the way. Patch plan, wheel arch front inner. Scrap is something. So what that is? Just says what it is. What it says on the tin. If we go up here, we can actually see what's in there. So let's have a look at everything there. Got a plane there. Probably don't need that plane. So again, I can go into. I should have it in my marking menu. I'd normally have it in the marking menu, but I know it's in the pick component there. I can just pick all of the things like planes and points. So I'm going to keep that wheel arch in a separate layer, but I think the thing to do probably here is to just put all of that, maybe apart from that, into a layer called body 1 or whatever. Hang on, what's that? That was body side. I'll just put it all into one layer, body 1. That one I shall put back in wheel arch there, so I can switch that on and off. And then we can go into layers. We can say we want to delete all of the unused layers, so anything that's empty will just go. So this immediately starts to make things clearer. You find that some things like body is still there, even though I'm pretty convinced I took everything out of it. If I open that up, the things that are in there are things like markup, which those markup windows that we had. We've got some. That is just a group name, so there's nothing in that. It's just a node. The safest thing to do, and these are groups of sections, so none of that. We don't want any of that in a layer. If we delete that layer, the objects in it don't get deleted. They just get assigned to default layer. So you can safely delete any layers where there are no objects that you need. If I open up bonnet detail, again, these are just group names and markup. So I can safely delete that layer, but those objects will still exist. So you're not accidentally deleting something that you wanted to keep there. And it just means that you can tidy up a little bit without having to work out exactly what everything is, because there's no point really halfway through. But the main thing is to make sure that you know where the things are that you're working on. So I think I'm going to leave it. I'm going to leave it there, and then we'll finish off these other details. So there's a bit more filleting to be done around here, and the other detail that we've got is on the mesh here. where we've got these inverts here.